about how we're. Oh, the Hangout is now live, so I can press go on this. Whee!
Oh, that means I gotta like do my thingies. Get my the name thingy at the bottom. Do you have a name thingy? Yes, lower third. Look at you with all the right names for everything.
Just want to make sure I'm all
professional. Professional is what you're saying, Leonard.
Hardly. So yes, I'm certain that we may have one or two people. Yeah, we've got one or two people watching. Hello, guys. We are going to share on the social medias as well. So I'm going to quickly go to my. We're now live.
Oh, there it is.
How to spell? Because I just spelled Twitter wrong, and considering that that tweet earlier, I'm turning dyslexic. God, I am becoming dyslexic.
There were so many spelling mistakes in that like small window of tweets. It was unbelievable. There's only 140 characters as well, and I think about 130 were in the wrong order.
Oh.
Now I could then go straight to a Morecambe and Wise sketch, and Mark would know what I'm on about. Not necessarily playing the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order. One of the greatest comedy sketches of all time. Like this. We're going to be keeping it relatively short today, but it's going to be more of a discussion more than the idea of in terms of our. So we're going to kind of dive in. If anything, we're kind of using today as a technical test because we're having a number of those. We have everybody on board this week, which is great. Good news, girls. Mark Searby will be joining us for today's show.
Why are you just limiting it to girls? I mean, it's that's incredibly sexist.
You're absolutely right. It's a modern era. You're not wrong.
I missed all of that, and I really wish I had heard it. It would have been a really good conversation to get upset with you guys all about.
Why would you get upset with us?
Oh, because Mark, it makes for giggles and laughs.
And
what is it? What is a Sunday without giggles and laughs?
Absolutely nothing. The final score, but in case you may be aware that we have had American football here in the UK, held at Twickenham. So, get you a sports score.
Speaking of giggles and laughs. Oh, gee. Yeah, I was doing the television, my weekly television thing, and I was like, why is football playing at 9:30 in the morning here?
And somewhere cold and abroad.
Well, that didn't occur to me. It was just a 9:30 in the morning thing. So during San Diego with my fantasy football team, 2 of my players were on bye that week, so they didn't play at all. So I was down 2 people for my fantasy football. Obviously, I have a lot to learn about fantasy football. Whoa.
I also have a lot to learn about fantasy football, mostly what's the point? But that's just me. What's really just going to see is the fact that the New York Giants and the LA team are going to get drunk in Leeds tonight. That's just bizarre to me. Nothing in the world.
That'll give them a new experience of life, won't it?
Welcome to Yorkshire. Oh, God. Okie dokie. So there we go. That's our countdown done and dusted. And yes, look at this. We're on top of the hour. We've got all of our guests on. This is just it's gonna freak us out. It's just not right. Right. And then we'll get onto this and welcome everybody. We have a couple of people jumping in on the chat room already. Andrew English, hello from London. Michael P, hello from Colorado Springs. No pictures of the countdown, not at the moment. I will explain. We'll use this episode as kind of like a catch-up on various bits and pieces, and we'll get into that. But first things first, let's really kind of introduce our guests, because I do kind of waffle on. So first things first, my name's Leonard Sultana. Welcome along to Talkin Comic-Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. We have some great guests, and it's good to actually have them on the Hangout, because we have had technical issues, but they're here. Thank goodness. We can actually say hello to Alyssa Franks from the Friends of CC Forum. Hello, Alyssa. How are you?
I am well. I am well.
Good.
It's been that kind of a week, but I am here and talking.
Yeah, tell me about it. I am right there with you. Yes, I think we're all a little bit phased out at this point. We're just kind of we're working on actual virtual news that's coming in over like the screens instead of actually going somewhere and finding out stuff. So it's proven to be one of those kind of times where we're just taking it all in digitally. So no, thank you very much indeed for joining us. What's been happening on the forum this week?
We are a lot of the management or the people up above, are trying to get all of our applications in for the spring cons. So working on wrapping up statistics, working on getting articles out, all of those kind of mundane, boring stuff. Trying to, it's because we're coming into December, January, and we're, looking ahead, trying to, keep people interested in what's happening. So that's what we've been up to.
Fair enough. I mean, I know that several people have been looking for links and articles that they've been posting in a desperate hope that they can have enough press credentials, certainly for articles like for places like Emerald City Comic-Con, I know, which has its press open at the moment. So yes, all fun and games, trying to find out just how creative you've been online. So, yeah.
Well, and also getting the site statistics. That's been our which is that mundane stuff, especially since we moved hosting services. So lest I bore you, Mark, how have you been?
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's really been a while. I was thinking about this the other day. The last time I was on the Hangouts was when it was Star Wars Celebration. So when was that, Leonard?
Good grief, back in July.
July,
ages ago.
Yes. Well, since then, I've taken a little holiday. I've seen a lot more films. I also did the London Film Festival, which is 10 days, 12 hours each day of non-stop films. I mean, I didn't do 10 days, but they still had a lot of big stuff there. And then last week I managed to get what obviously we term con crud, but I think I got it from the London Film Festival. So I was full on man flu, snivelling and wiping it on my arm and then in my hair and everything. It was lovely. And I had to go and see The Light Between the Oceans, which worked nicely because I could disguise my crying by saying, yes, it's my illness. So it worked nice. But I'm okay now. You've got me on at the right time.
Because you are, of course, a stoic man, manly man. I can understand that.
Yeah, it was something like that. Or it might have been the beauty of Alicia Vikander that was possibly making me tear up too much. I don't know.
Fair enough. I understand tears were also involved in seeing Jack Reacher. But not necessarily the right kind of tears.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but ultimately, the first Jack Reacher film is very good. It's lots of action and Tom Cruise doing his Tom Cruisey thing, and Werner Herzog as a bad guy. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? Second one, really looking forward to it, and Tom Cruise does his Running Man, and that's kind of it. And it's just not a good film at all. I mean, thank goodness for Kobe Smulders, because she's the sole reason to see that film. It's a bad film.
Okay.
The other guy, the other guy, the black sergeant, whose name escapes me at the moment, he was also in Leverage, was good too. I mean, he's also was decent in addition to Colby. So with the two of them, they're the ones, in my opinion, that saved the show. But I agree, totally predictable. Even I, who can't predict a thing, was like predicting, okay, he's going to get hit now, and she's going to go down, and this is going to be that. And it didn't even, the fight scenes, predictable.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is obviously a standard, a line, a bar for a film to clear, for it to be truly diabolical or just tolerable. And that line is, of course, Jason Bourne, which is films I have seen. Oh, God. I wanted to walk out of that film so badly. But is it Jason Bourne bad, or is it not quite there?
Yeah, I would probably say it's on par with Jason Bourne. It just misses every single idea that it wants to do. And that's the problem. It feels like a watered down version of everything you've seen before. Even the Bourne films, it feels like it's watered it all down. And you're talking about a film that's got Tom Cruise doing action. And if he's not doing action, then what's the point in turning up? Oh, dear.
Fair enough. So there you go. There's our pocket review. Go and see
Jack Reacher. Never go back.
Never go back to that thing.
Yes.
Yes. Don't diss the Bourne, says Graham Small. Jason Bourne was crap. There we go. It was truly diabolical and a horrible, horrible film. Right. Let's dive straight into it then, because there's some things that I want to talk about. And I know that Alyssa wants to go in a slightly different route. She's mentioned a couple of cons to me in our kind of organizing for today's show. We kind of touched on this briefly as well on last week's recap of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival. We talked about a post that was put up by John Freeman on downthetubes.net. This came with the very straightforward title, Are There Too Many Comic-Cons? This was off the back of a cancellation of the NICE festival here in the UK. I know there's a number of conventions in the US that have also had to cancel because of the sheer amount of events that are taking place within the modern con calendar. We also had London Super Comic-Con moving from its winter position, so like January, February, moving straight into September and really diving into that kind of that melee, as it were. I came at it from a slightly different perspective when I read the post, that I felt that it was down to the talent pool, that you have so many of these events happening. At the end of the day, and they can't show up at every convention, which just thins out the herd and the appeal of going to these events. At which point, Jeff Stokely, who runs the NICE convention or NICE festival, he turned around and came at it from the fans' perspective, saying that fans can't attend every single convention going, which is understandable. It's a financial thing, and it's also just so many events. And it's something we've been talking about on this Hangout for a good couple of years now, that the growth of the com culture has just gotten to the point where sites like mine can justify their existence. There's just so many events that allow coverage to happen. At which point I then turn to my guests then. So Alyssa and Mark. We'll start with Alyssa, and we'll just ask the question: are there too many Comic-Cons?
I'm not sure if there's too many cons, but what I certainly am seeing is the growth of the smaller specified con, like HasCon, which is announced this week. So you're going to have the toy people going to Hasbro Con. The question is Hasbro going to go to San Diego? They don't go to New York Con, so which that kind of brings, that diminishes the larger cons. So I'm not quite sure if there's too many cons, or if it just means that we're past the heyday of the big convention. which is a shame because I like the big conventions. I'm not a fan of, just going and seeing one thing. I'm not going to travel all the way across the country for HouseCon, for example, even though I know HouseCon is in Rhode Island. I understand that. But I'm not going to go across the country for a small, BlizzCon, because I'm not as much of a gamer, but yet I love the Blizzard booth and I love the products that they bring. So that's been my perspective on it.
Okay. I mean, of course, if you do want to jump in on the chat room as well, if there's any comments that as our audience want to make, of course, do dive in. And of course, you can use the hashtag CupOTSDC as well. We do keep an eye on that. Already, we've got a couple of comments talking about Jason Coe, saying, when are we going to have a FunkCon? Funko has yet to have a convention. It's only a matter of time, surely. And I did quite like the comment from Graham Small as well. They can't cut back on UK cons because Andrew Lee Potts would starve, which I think is Mark got that reference. Every single
yeah.
Andrew Lee Potts is an actor, which, well, I think he's an actor. I think he's now just a professional con attendee, but that's basically what he does. Yeah. What's your take on it, Mark? Because I mean, the conversation has been mostly about the UK cons and our con calendar, but it can absolutely equate to the US and North America and kind of worldwide as well, that just every weekend there are these events. Does it get too much? Have we reached a saturation level?
I don't think there's a definitive answer for that, because we're never going to say that was the peak moment. I think we're going to see it, like Alyssa says, slowly drift away into smaller cons focusing on one thing. I mean, the classic example here in the UK, and I don't know if people have seen this, is there's a company who do cons specifically for Supernatural, Arrow, a couple of other minor shows and stuff like that, and they do them in the north of England. Now, for the first time ever, they're actually going to do one in London. However, their Supernatural one, which is very big, they get all of the cast over in the summer, and it's very popular, and you only buy a ticket for the entire weekend. It's about, I would say, probably about $200 for the entire weekend. That doesn't get you autographs or anything else like that. So they bring them all over, and one of the first guests they announced was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Now, he's been before. Okay, great. Since then, the people who run Walker Stalker have signed Jeffrey Dean Morgan for their event here in England, in London, in February. So he's had to drop out of the other one, which he's done for the couple of years previous, because I'm guessing they want to sign him for Walker Stalker and say, listen, if you're doing these in America, you have to come to London as well. That's the whole deal. I can only imagine that's what it is. So obviously his management have turned around to these people who organise these other ones and said, sorry, he can't come now. So I think we're going to see, as Alyssa said, the decline of one big convention, and I think we're going to see the springing of smaller ones, which is great for obviously people who just want to meet a select bunch of people. But then for us who want to go and see everybody, possibly we're missing out. Well, we're going to have to pay maybe 3 times as much as what we would do for one con. Yeah.
I mean, we could also look at two arguments as well. The one statement that has obviously come from New York Comic-Con, that they announced something like 170,000 unique tickets.
180.
If I'm correct, I know, which is just a phenomenal amount of tickets and people attending an event. So I think we then can refer back to previous comments over the last 4 or 5 years that Comic-Con, not only San Diego, but New York, is very much like a bubble, that it doesn't matter how big it grows, we somehow manage to fill it. So we are still kind of like in that fandom filling in the space, as it were. But then again, you've also got this other argument when it comes to, like you say, the talent pool that's available. And this refers then to the article that we spoke on with our interview with Mike Armstrong, which was I'm trying to remember the actor's name, which is now completely blanked out of my head. From
Stephen Amell.
Stephen Amell. Thank you very much. The second you started saying it, his name comes into my head. Stephen Amell, and he actually is involved in an organisation. I believe he's actually one of the principal organisers of an organisation which manages talent for conventions. It's now becoming such a massive industry, and they're not going to want to let that bubble burst. In one of the lines in the article is that we would prefer to have the niche events happening, and we would like to have them kind of spread out so we can continue these audiences coming to our events, and we can continue making money, because that's the principal thing. I mean, the one thing as well that I find about San Diego Comic-Con is that when people talk about it, they're not talking about seeing a trailer, they're not seeing a panel, they're not seeing a certain property. It's more of being in the crowd with your fellow tribe, as it were. That's the prime draw of going to the larger conventions. Is that still a valid statement?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I think for overall for a con that covers all bases, yes, because you're going to stand next to somebody, or you're going to speak to somebody eventually who likes the same things you do, which is great. If you go to one of these small conventions, everybody likes that. That's why you're there. So all that's going to happen is you'll probably end up having an argument about, who Negan has killed. I mean, that's how it's going to play out. But if you're in these bigger cons, you can then say, what's that Workaholics show all about? And they go, you haven't seen Workaholics? Except, things like that. It's people telling you about things that are going on in other rooms that you have no idea about. But because you like such and such, you should probably go and see it.
And also the serendipity of having a panel before the panel that you want to go see. That's how I got turned on to Supernatural, for example. Half dozen years ago, I was in for a Doctor Who panel, and Supernatural was right before it. So I think that is definitely one of the things that gets lost in all of this. Plus, with all of the smaller shows, there's going to be a gradual decline in the amount of people going to conventions, and this pop culture bubble. I hesitate to say bubble, that's not the right word, but this pop culture grouping that we've all self-identified with. And I think that it will have a tendency of fractioning us as a group, which I think is the saddest thing of them all, is that we won't get to feel that camaraderie that we do feel at San Diego and New York and the larger cons. I think you guys have both addressed this. I just wanted to kind of rephrase it and
no, it makes sense. We've got a couple of comments on the Q&A. Angela Copley, I travel from Texas to LA for Gallifrey 1. It's a small specific con worth traveling for. About 3,500 people attend. Yeah, I'm trying to work out the numbers for Lakes. That's a very similar thing, that there was a very small audience for that. Need, especially for the regional conventions, the likes of Liverpool and Manchester are very busy with people who can't get or don't want to go to London. I can imagine it's very similar for yourself, Alyssa, that people aren't wanting to make the journey to New York, and San Diego is a hell of a distance for a great many people. And Andrew, English is...
There's a difference between the regional conventions and the specific conventions that we're talking about, like HasCon and the CW conventions. Those are focused on the one event, whereas the regional conventions like Boston Comic-Con and Rhode Island Comic-Con, which are the ones in my area, pull from comic book creators and the TV talent. And so they'd love to get some movie people in there, but then there's also the local retailers. So I think there's a huge difference between regional conventions and the CWs and the those kinds. I don't conflate the two. In other words, yeah. Please, thank you.
Sure. I mean, I think myself and Mark can equate to this, because Showmasters very much put on regional events here in the UK. And while they do put on the London Film and Comic-Con, well, they do too at the Excel Centre in London. There's other events that they run around the UK, and I think my local one is Sheffield. I think there's also Cardiff as well. They put on a number, and yeah, they're not exactly the. I'm trying to work out how to put this diplomatically, and I think we'll leave it there. I think that's I'm damning with faint praise, but it certainly doesn't have anywhere remotely near the talent that is drawn to certainly the bigger events. Jason Coe, he feels that there's more time for huge panels and hanging with friends I only see once or twice a year at the bigger cons. I think that's down to the communal thing that we've been referring to. And Andrew English, I go to most of London Comic-Cons as it's getting very hard to get decent tickets for San Diego Comic-Con. I think, yeah, I think it's just grown to such a point where San Diego it's just so many people trying to get tickets or badges. Let's get it right, man, out of the gate, for God's sake. These smaller cons or the cons are just proving as an alternative, as a kind of stopgap, as it were, to San Diego.
You saying that, Leonard? I mean, you were at MCM earlier this year along with me. I mean, those tickets flew out the door. They were so quick with those tickets. And whilst the talent pool there was okay, it was pretty good. You know, it was more about what was on offer, and it felt like when you walked the floor at San Diego that you could walk around and they had all of these little intricate stalls, you know, and it was very different to what you would see at what I would say anyway at a standard UK convention, which is obviously line upon line of famous faces. So you know, I think somebody like MCM have grown because they're not so much sort of a niche area, but they've managed to pick apart what others are not doing. Yeah,
I go along with that. I'm going to ask Alyssa off the back of a point from Sarita P here. The amount of tickets sold, and obviously this is referring back to New York Comic-Con, doesn't necessarily mean the content is great. This is from a non-business point. What did you feel as an attendee at New York Comic-Con? Did you feel satisfied? Because you were saying there that, because I didn't know this, I didn't know that Hasbro didn't go to New York Comic-Con this year. Still enough content to drive it, because I mean certainly Artist Alley looked incredible this year.
I felt as though there was enough content and enough of the bigger shows. Certainly Madison Square Garden and the BBC block and the sci-fi block of magicians and the like over at the Hammerstein. I felt as though that there was enough. The Marvel shows on the main stage, well, I think Marvel to some extent, and I know that I'm probably going to get bashed for this, I think for some extent they were phoned in, so to speak. They were the pretty typical panel for Marvel with the big introductions, and I wanted to see something new. I wanted it to be, you know, I wanted them to take it to the next level, because that's what I expect. I have high expectations from Marvel. We still got to see Sigourney Weaver, and that was great. In terms of the floor, yeah, sure, it would be fun to see Hasbro, but we've got Funko. Sure, it would be nice to see, you know, a little bit more happening on the floor, but we also kind of got to dial back on some of the pure commercial stuff that was on the floor too. And as you said, Artist Alley, the talent in Artist Alley is spectacular. So I personally think that that it is a great show to go to, and it's definitely the second highlight of my year.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put a question to the pair of you now, and this is, I think, going to be the test bed for 2017, off the back of the conversation we've just had. We're talking about this splintering of the small, or the smaller as such, the more specific talent or specific interests into other events. At which point we then have to refer to D23, which next year is going to have Lucasfilm, and all everything that D23 have to offer. And we have to ask the question again: will that affect San Diego Comic-Con? And will it affect the other big events as well? Because at the end of the day, it's not just San Diego. There's also the other conventions that are happening around that summertime. At the end of the day,
you're missing the key point. It's right before San Diego Comic-Con, the weekend before. So you didn't hit that point. I'm like, Leonard, I kept expecting the punchline. You missed the punchline. Is it going to affect it? Absolutely. I can't see how they're going to do it. I mean, I don't think we're going to get the big panels in Hall H this year at San Diego that we got that we'll get it hopefully at D23, which yes, I already have my tickets for.
Well, I mean, we have this.
So are you guys?
No, we had this not last year, the year before when D23 happened, and Marvel wasn't there, and it was Fox that showed up and tried to do the Marvel thing, and he kind of pulled it off. Yes, it's just. I mean, what's your take on it, Mark? I mean, certainly that summer block of so many events taking place, and when you have something like D23, which has so many massive properties under that umbrella.
Yeah, it's a tough question because I do you know what, I wouldn't like to comment because you can see the benefit of Disney doing it at D23 because then all of the headlines will say, yeah, premiered at D23, and people go, what's this D23? We need to go to this. Forget San Diego. We need to do this. But then San Diego is already this established mecca. So releasing something there is kind of the given thing. I get the feeling that maybe they will do something like, here's a little snippet of footage, and then at San Diego we'll show you a full trailer. Maybe something like that. But it's well, I don't know. It's very clever marketing from Disney, though. Let's do it the week before San Diego. That's the best thing about it. It really is.
Well, I mean, we've already discussed that San Diego kind of confirm when their events are going to be 2 years down the line, thanks to the way that they block out the convention center. So these events can maneuver around them. So, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. To be honest, in my personal opinion, D23 can do whatever it likes. Wizard World can do whatever they like. New York Comic-Con can do whatever they like, so long as there is a Stranger Things, a Westworld, and a Black Mirror panel at San Diego Comic-Con. I couldn't care less. As long as those three are there, I'm a happy bunny. So that's my take on it. So there we go. Which is going to be my segue into television. And just wrap it up with the simple question then. Alyssa, are there too many Comic-Cons? Yes or no answer?
No.
Okay. Mark, are there... I mean, we're not even going to go into the whole idea of Comic-Cons. Just like pop culture. Yeah, that's a whole other ballgame. Mark Searby, are there too many Comic-Cons?
No, not at the moment. I mean, it's close. I'm very close to saying yes, but no, not. I mean, maybe one or two more a year or something. I don't know, but it's close to saying yes.
Okay. Well, jump in on the chat room. Yes or no answer. Let's see what everyone else is saying. Karen Session, NYCC and D23 will take some of the pressure. Go Comic-Con, in my opinion. I don't know about that. I think it actually adds to the pressure because then it's a case of what will they attract. It's a case of they have to for people to make that journey. Andrew English says no for the time being. Bit of an adjoinder there. Graham Small, more, please. So there's a couple of comments there. Do jump in on those on the Q&A, and of course, do let us know. Right, Alyssa, I'm certain that you would like to talk about television. As we I tried to dovetail into the TV at that point. Obviously, you've got a couple of big shows happening at the moment. I mean, I don't know how Black Mirror is being received in the States at the moment. Here in the UK, it's going down particularly well.
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know, but I certainly have seen people talk about it, and it is absolutely one of those shows that I'm on the lookout for. I've got to line it up and try and watch it, add it to the list, my growing list of shows that I must watch every week. Speaking of,
what's on that list at the moment then?
Well, Walking and Talking Dead. I'm going to give Pure Genius a try, but we'll get into that one in a bit. I'm watching Designated Survivor, Pitch, Notorious, Conviction, Dirk Gently, I pronounced it right, Falling Water, Blacklist, Blind Spot, Gotham, Lethal Weapon, The Strain, Van Helsing, which I really like. But, you know, women who beat up people, I like those kinds of shows. I don't know why. It's something in the genes there. Marvel AOS, Z Nation. Mark, are you catching The Exorcist over there?
Yeah, it started.
It comes out this week, doesn't it? Yeah.
It started last weekend, but I haven't seen it yet. I did ask a few people for their reactions, and their reaction was, yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not sure about it, but we'll see how it grows, I guess.
I'm just curious how something which is as pure horror as The Exorcist can actually work on terrestrial television nowadays. I mean, obviously, the lines can be pushed, and we've seen shows which have really kind of stretch the bubble of how much you can scare the crap out of an audience. But at the end of the day, The Exorcist is full-blown horror, and I'm just wondering just how far they can actually push it. I've yet to see it. I actually thought it started next week, but obviously I need to do my catch-up on that.
I only saw the first episode, so I haven't, which I liked. I haven't seen the rest of it. I'm not a big horror fan, though. Lucifer and Arrow to finish out my list of shows that I'm either letting stack up on my DVR or trying to catch every week. Of course, the two shows that are Pure Genius is starting up this week, which is a medical show. It's a hospital show about a very innovative medical technology. Not geeky at all, but some people may be interested in watching that. There's another show.
What's the title of that?
The Pure Genius is happening, and it's not starting in the States until the end of the week. The other show that's happening, which again is not geeky, is The Living and the Dead. It's a bit on the horror side, and apparently what they're doing is, I'm scrolling down for it. One of the networks is putting on Pure Genius, and they're dumping like all 6 episodes right before Halloween. So, and it is kind of a horror type of show, which might be of interest to some people. It's on CBS on Thursday, the 27th. Silicon Valley tech moves to a small town, weird things start happening. Because we haven't seen that plot ever happen before. So that one looks good. But of course, the biggest thing is that we finally, and I will read exactly what my co-writer said about this week in television. This week will be notable for the bats in more ways than one. First, we can say, finally, our questions will be answered tonight. And second, we get the Cubbies and the Cleveland Indians in the playoffs. So that's looking forward to tonight.
Sports teams.
Sports.
Sports teams. Okay, excellent stuff. I mean, there's a couple of shows that I noticed that you didn't mention there, which have come up on the chat room. Angela Copley is saying that I am still enjoying Lethal Weapon, although Andrew English is saying that Lethal Weapon would be okay if it wasn't called Lethal Weapon, which I think I think that's his primary problem, that it's got all that baggage Yeah, I totally get that. Graham Small is undecided on Notorious, Bull, and Conviction, but everyone is jumping on Star Wars Rebels as being truly awesome. I saw the first 2 episodes at Star Wars Celebration, and I really enjoyed it. If anything, because it really did seem that it transitioned from being the kids' show of Star Wars to being full-blown Star Wars. If anything, being very dark, almost being kind of like proto-Rogue One, which... Don't worry, Mark, we'll dovetail into that in a second. Jason, let's have a look. Jason Coe, Walking Dead starts tonight. Cook a nice meal, surround yourself with your loved ones, and brace yourselves. And Aaron Neighbours, hopefully not too much rioting tonight after The Walking Dead. Like I say, I mean, the one... Oh, hello, go for it,
yeah.
Mark.
I just want to say something. For everybody who's watching The Walking Dead tonight in the US, please do not spoil it. We don't get it until tomorrow night. So I don't want to wake up tomorrow morning before going to work and switch on Twitter and see Negan has killed 7 people and all their names listed. So please, because I do want to know and I do want to watch it. But it's happened to me twice this year with other shows. And it's like, oh, great. Oh, well, there we go. There's no point watching it now.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to also understand just how of an addict to Twitter that Mark is. So he has to turn it on.
Yeah.
He has to go to his screen. So it'll hurt.
Yeah.
If he discovers.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I actually thought we were getting a simulcast. I
we do.
Time.
Yeah, no, we do. This is the first time they've done it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I'm stunned that no one's talked about Westworld. Or are we just accepting that it is the greatest television show of all time, or for the 21st century? Although it's got to be said, I know that, Alyssa, you're rather big on The Expanse.
I love The Expanse.
It to be...
But it's not on air right now. Westworld, HBO, don't get it because I'm cheap and I haven't paid for HBO. So it's just like, I get Stars. I've got to switch off.
It's so good.
I know.
Good. It's one show that I just thought that my expectations were going to be so high that it just wasn't ever going to match it, and it's just absolutely just cleared the bar. It's just incredible so far. But that's my take on it. I've got an episode to catch up on The Westworld, so looking for that. Hashtag no TWD spoilers for Mark Searby.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Please. Okay.
Just to dovetail then, because we were talking about how I think Star Wars Rebels is very much tonally this season. It's a new phase for Star Wars, and I know Mark wants to talk about Rogue One. What would you like to talk about, Mark?
Well, here's the thing with Rogue One, right? Okay, so it's the second new Star Wars we've got. We are now 6 weeks away from release. Where's the anticipation for it? Where's the huge buzz? You know, this time last year we were all on the edge of our seats waiting for the new Star Wars. Now it's kind of like all of it seems to have just disappeared. It's like it's there in the background, but nobody's buzzing about it. You know, you look at the amount of stuff that's on social media about Rogue One, and all of it is, you know, puff pieces about, 7 characters in Rogue One. But there's no real people saying, can't wait for this to come out. I really can't wait. You know, it seems to have disappeared, and I'm not sure why it is. Is it because it's not... Well, obviously it's a Star Wars film, but because it's not, you know, Star Wars episode blah, it's a Star Wars story. But nobody's talking about it that I know at all.
I think for myself, it's just a case of content overload. And people are just kind of pacing themselves now. It's one thing at a time. On Friday, it was Black Mirror for a couple of days. Nobody's talking about Black Mirror anymore. Now they're talking about The Walking Dead. Come tomorrow morning, everyone's going to be talking about Doctor Strange. They're just staggering themselves now. And I think they're going to wait till Doctor Strange is out of the way, until everything else is out of the way. And then they can just kind of like do that short kind of like 1-2 week explosion of interest.
But 1 or 2 weeks marketing for Star Wars. I mean, it doesn't sound right at all. You know, we should all be going, yeah, okay, great. We're looking forward to Doctor Strange, and we're looking forward to, you know, this and that. But Rogue One is the one film we're waiting for the rest of the year. But nobody's talking.
It's hard to introduce and to do a big marketing campaign for characters that you don't know. And I think that that's the problem that Rogue One has, is that since it's with characters that we don't already have the backstory for, we can't immediately identify with yet. And once that introduction, I think we're waiting on the studios to introduce those characters to us, and perhaps maybe with a comic book or maybe with some other medium to give us an idea of what these characters are about. Because all we have are a few snippets and a few just sentences here and there, and we don't know who these characters are. There's 7 of them. So yeah. It's huge. So once that's done, we'll start talking about it more.
I'm still waiting for the bus side posters or the, you know, just any kind of marketing where you actually have character faces and names under them. We need to start seeing some names to these characters, because it's okay seeing faces, but we don't know who, like you say, we don't know who they are. Then again, I'm still a bit curious about some of the naming for these characters, because they are such odd names, and I don't know if it is just a case of whether it's just getting the names in the old brain pan, as it were. I'm only just starting to get Jyn Erso in there, but only bloody just. It's only just starting to sink in. s04e12 feels exactly when late December hits, I believe Rogue One will be heard everywhere. Although she has spelt it in the way that everyone else spells it well. Rouge One. That's what they could have called. That's what they should have called it. It's all about mascara, kids. Graham Small, I think there's just so much happening and coming up to prioritize something in 6 weeks that isn't a real sequel. But it's a Star Wars story. It says it right in the title. So yeah, I think it's just going to be. I mean, I'm actually quite. This has been mentioned on the old social on the chat room, and I don't know if anyone spotted this. The interesting way that marketing is happening for films now, including, for example, Doctor Strange. I don't know if anyone saw the clip of an American soap. I can't remember which soap it was, where they actually shoehorned the mentioning of going to see Doctor Strange in theaters in the dialogue. It was quite disturbing. And I think that's when we start thinking that then marketing overload is really starting to hit home. That was just bizarre. I mean, how excited are you to see Rogue One at this point, Alyssa? I mean, are you a Star? I know you're not a massive Star Wars fan, but you have a couple of in the house.
Oh, very much so. And my cycling back into watching more movies, you watching a movie every week is. I'm just really looking forward to the whole fall season of Doctor Strange, and next week I forget is what's next week, Mark? What big movie is coming out next week? He's gonna go.
For us in the UK, it's Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Oh, jealous.
Yeah. Sorry, did I do that out loud? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to all of the fall movies that are coming up. But yes, absolutely. Star Wars, I mean, that's, you know, having that one big movie around Christmas time, and that, for me, that big movie is going to be the Star Wars movie, is key. So I'm hugely looking forward to it. I just want to know more about these characters before I walk in there, so I have an idea about the backstory.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Mark, I'm going to put this to you about, you know, we were talking about staggering of films down the line. I mean, we've also got Arrival to show, and we've also got The Accountant to land as well, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. The Accountant is next week. Arrival is the week after. And I mean, the good thing is, because you saying that is quite funny, because I tweeted the other day to say I'm going to see The Light Between the Oceans, and a few people replied back to me to say, haven't you seen it yet? And it's like, no, we haven't got it in the UK. You know, the same with The Accountant. And that's what happens. We get staggered releases with some stuff. So between now and Rogue One, it's actually quite a busy schedule here in the UK. I mean, I'm lucky enough. I've already seen Arrival. Yes, it's amazing. Yes, it is. Yes, it's amazing. I mean, you don't have to be a sci-fi person to go. It was just phenomenal. And I'll happily say that it's in my top 10 films of the year. It was just brilliant. But there's still all of this other stuff coming, and this is where I'm thinking, has Rogue One left it too late? You know, this is my question.
Okay. Well, we've had Force Friday, or Go Rogue as it was called. There are some toys out there, and people starting to see the name floating around. And heaven knows that trailer that came out last week certainly made one hell of an impression. So I think it's just more of a staggering thing. I think it's just everyone. We can't deal with too many things at once. I mean, Alyssa with her list, how the hell she could do all that lot is just beyond me.
Thank God, I've got a 9 terabyte DVR. Okay, just 9 terabytes.
Here in the UK, we just had launched Sky Q, where the big selling point is you can record 4 things while watching a 5th. At which point I turn around and say, great. 4 things you'll never get around to bloody watching, because you just never have the goddamn time.
When you start DVRing it in the States, you automatically cut out 20 minutes. So I save 20 minutes for each show that I DVR, number 1. Okay, and number 2, this is what I do in the summertime, you know, when it's all like sports. So I'm all over the fall. The Christmas holidays, I will absolutely be DVRing. So I was thinking it's Inferno that's coming up next week for us in the States as being the big movie.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Which is gonna...
That's quite a delay, I've got to say, because we had that 2 weeks ago, maybe. I'm surprised at the delay for the US, considering obviously it's a US production. But
And likewise, me for you on The Accountant. I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about that. But you did like Arrival, that Jeremy Renner.
Oh, Arrival. Oh, it's so amazing.
God, I think Mark's just come.
No, seriously, honestly.
God, man.
Yeah. No, but when you see it, it's quite funny, because a lot of people saw it before me and said, oh, you know, Christopher Nolan has been outdone. And I'm thinking, I don't know if he has, you know. And then Arrival is a completely different film to Interstellar. Completely different. I'm not going to say any more than that, but I loved it. And I was 2 rows from the front, and I felt like I was right in it. It was brilliant. And Amy Adams was fantastic in it. If anybody ever has a problem with women leading films, I'm going to show them that film and say, you could take all the men out of this film, and it solely rests on Amy Adams, as she does the most spectacular job.
Yeah, but we could also turn around and say about most films with Jeremy Renner that you could take Jeremy Renner out and nobody would notice.
I would notice. I would. Being a sole girl here, I would.
He's very pretty.
He's very pretty. Absolutely, totally. What can I say?
Oh, good Lord.
Hey, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah,
indeed. Okay, I mean, a couple of comments coming on. Yeah, a couple of comments on the chat room. Hey, wow, our complaint is too many good shows. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. I remember when Star Trek was all we had. You're dating yourself there, sir. Easy, Tiger. Let's see. Jason Coe, exactly, Alyssa. I saved some of them and binge watched them on the weekend or at night. So that's why this is why we voted Brexit, This is why you have Donald Trump in your elections. We're all sleep deprived. At this point, we're letting things slide under the radar. We're all just too knackered, and these things are happening. That's my. There you go. That's my. Sorry, I'm trying to do Family Guy, and that's my 5 pence. So there we go. Right.
Yeah, I will say that there are problems with being too technologically adept and being able to actually modify my DVRs so that I can have 9 terabytes in them. So that's, perhaps a little shoot me in the head kind of thing. But the following week we get Trolls and Doctor Strange too. So that'll be an interesting week.
That will be.
When is
that week?
When's Doctor Strange coming?
Well, Doctor Strange is out here Tuesday.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. So,
and you haven't seen it before, Mark?
No. There was a press screening tonight, and there is one tomorrow night. But because my girlfriend wants to see it, we're going Tuesday when it opens. So. Yeah.
So basically, tomorrow, if you do spoil The Walking Dead for Mark,
he's
going to wreck the living crap out of Doctor Strange for you.
Yeah.
And he's going to target those tweets in your direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm even going to tell you what the post-credits sequence happens. I'm even going to put that on there.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get a tweet about that anyway. I mean, it's just the way. Yeah. Fair enough. Excellent stuff. So cool. Lots of great content to come, and I'm looking forward to seeing Doctor Strange on Tuesday. A little bit wound up by I'm going to make my comments here now. Thank you very much indeed to Cineworld Sheffield for announcing an 8:30 screening as the first screening, at which point me and my other half and my other first screening buddies booked our tickets, and then they booked 2 other screening times and neglected to mention it. So thank you very much indeed to that, Cineworld Sheffield. Really appreciated that. Here's hoping that there's still some IMAX posters left. You swines. So there we go. Oh, I've been so wound up this weekend. It's just been insane. But there we go. Lots of stuff to see and watch on television and on the big screen. I hope you are going to see as much of it as you possibly can. And thank you very much indeed for watching our show today. We will be announcing the next couple of days what our show next week is going to be about. But I'm hoping there's a couple of cons on the way, which I think is happening. Is that right? I know that MCM's happening next week. We've also got Nottingham Comic-Con that's happening here in the UK. What's happening in the US, Alyssa? I know there's a couple that's on the horizon.
I think Rhode Island Con is happening. There's one in Los Angeles. EW, Entertainment Weekly, is putting on a con that's happening in downtown LA. I think it's not in conjunction with, but at the same time as another con in downtown LA. So you're able to bounce back and forth between the 2 of them, which might go to our earlier conversation about too many conventions happening.
If we have anybody that is going to Stanley's LA Comic-Con, if you want to do a live stream into the show, I know that Jason Coe's watching. I don't know if he's going. If you are wanting to jump in and do an outside broadcast and a report on that, I'd love to. Would love to have you on. And indeed, I know Graham Small perhaps at MCM. As the sky goes incredibly dark over the XL, maybe you can do a report of that. Go on, Alyssa.
It's just interesting to note that I believe this is the old Kamikaze, which no longer has Stan Lee collectibles or Stan Lee going to it.
Yes.
So I
noticed that.
Yeah. We're kind of interested in that. I happen to collect Stan Lee pops, and Stan Lee Collectibles have announced that they now have a bunch of Stan Lee pops that they're looking to market and to release at a particular show. So there's something very odd going on that I don't know. Maybe I'm just hoping that there's nothing wrong, that Stan Lee isn't in a medical situation and that he's doing okay.
I appreciate that. I think we've also got to understand that Stanley is suffering from a condition called 93. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about it. So there we go. Excellent stuff. What's your plans between now and next week then, Alyssa? Have you got anything on for yourself?
I don't. I mean, I did. There is a couple of interesting things happening, just to bring this up briefly to anybody who lives in San Diego. On November 3rd, there's going to be a ballot measure for the convention center expansion. Tony Hawk did an excellent video on it. And apparently I'm not able to post a YouTube link on the YouTube channel. Chat room.
But of course. We'll find that and stick it on Twitter. I think I've got it in my. It's part of a longer video as well, which he does a nice little PSA on it. Hopefully next week we are going to be talking about the two proposals, and certainly as we get closer to those votes, because I find this whole situation fascinating. So hopefully we are going to.
Absolutely. The primary thing to understand is David Glanzer said on our podcast, non-contiguous expansion, bad. Contiguous expansion, good. Playing C and D, not good. So personally, in a nutshell, there is more to it than that. But
for myself,
next week.
For myself, whether it's a continuous whatever, whether it's a non-continuous whatever, whether it's that proposal that the Chargers want to put forward for their what the hell did they call it, the condominium or something?
Convenium.
Yeah. I don't care, so long as they pay for some of it and not just dump it on the taxpayers of San Diego, you heartless bastards. Anyway, right. My statement on it. Mark, what have you got lined up? Are you going to MCM next week?
Yeah, I'm going Saturday. My friend is coming to stay with me for the weekend, and he's got 2 kids, so we're going to be taking kids to a con. I don't know how well that's going to go, because I'm sure I'll be like, no, don't touch that. That's £200 worth there, that is. I'll have to pay for that if you break it. So that'll be interesting, yeah. But it's a smaller scale, this one, than the one that's in the spring. It's a lot scaled down, so it'll be interesting to see what they've done.
Okay, so I'll be very curious to hear what your report on that is. I mean, I know that also Mark wants to do an interview with me about my SDCC. I think he wants to put some hard questions to me about why the hell I wanted to do an app. So I think we're going to do that at some point in the next week or whenever. So expect to see that on a YouTube channel soon, where Mark grills me about this project that I've had in mind. Right, where can people find you online, Alyssa?
Friends of CCI is my Twitter, and friendsofcc.com is the blog, and friendsofcc.com/forum is the forum.
Excellent stuff. And yourself, Mark?
Twitter, Mark_Searby. I have my own little website that I don't really post on. It's just there as a sort of online CV, which is marksearby.com. Every Thursday night across the east of England, I'm on the radio doing the film reviews. I normally post a live link, and over the weekend post the listen again as well.
Excellent stuff. And for myself, Leonard Sultana, you can find me on Twitter, Englishman SDCC, and if you just type in an Englishman in San Diego in most Google search engines, you can find me on most social platforms. And of course, you can find out more about the app, which we've just referred to, My SDCC app on Twitter, and also you can search for My SDCC on Facebook. We are going to be doing a little bit of an update in the next couple of days, because we go to beta tomorrow. Whee! So looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll get some bugs ironed out and before we actually go and get the thing released. But like I say, in the next hopefully in the next week or so, Mark's going to be interviewing me about that and coming at it from an outsider's perspective about why on earth I've decided to do an app. So there we go. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Enjoy your television. Enjoy The Walking Dead tonight. Not a word. Stay off social media for the love of God, or Mark is going to come round and reenact whatever is going to happen on screen this evening.
And also tell you what happens in Doctor Strange while still using that bat. Yes.
Yes. This happened in This happened in the end credits. You swine! Bang bang. Excellent stuff. Do take care. Back again next week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT for another Talkin Comic-Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.